This is Dr. Elliot McGucken at 45 Surf University, and this was the first physics book that I ever wrote, titled Light, Time, Dimension Theory, the Foundational Physics Unifying Einstein's Relativity and Quantum Mechanics. Now, I got the name for the theory, Light, Time, Dimension Theory, based on the marvelous equation first laid down by Minkowski and soon adopted by Einstein. X4 is equal to ICT. And Einstein credited Minkowski's formal mathematical treatment of special relativity as that which allowed him to develop general relativity. He credited Minkowski with being an important stepping stone, which allowed him to visualize time as a fourth dimension and mathematically treat it as X4. And the description of the book reads, regarding the award-winning physicist Dr. Elliot McGucken at Princeton University, the late John Archibald Wheeler stated, more intellectual curiosity, versatility, and yen for physics than Elliot McGucken's I have never seen in any senior or graduate student. Originality, powerful motivation, and a can-do spirit make me think that McGucken is a top bet. That was from a letter for a recommendation for grad school penned by John Archibald Wheeler. And then the book description continues. In this common sense volume penned for the layman and advanced scientist alike, Dr. E's LTD theory provides a unifying, foundational physical model underlying relativity, quantum mechanics, time and all its errors and asymmetries, and the second law of thermodynamics. The detailed diagrams demonstrate that the great mysteries of quantum mechanical non-locality, entanglement, and probability naturally arise from the very same principle that fosters relativity alongside light's constant velocity, the equivalence of mass and energy in time dilation. One fine afternoon, while Dr. E was lunching with J.A. Wheeler at the Princeton Institute for Advanced Study, the IAS, a bespectacled gentleman joined them. Wheeler introduced the fellow as Ed Witten, one of the leading pioneers of string theory and inventor of M-theory. Dr. E had been contemplating pursuing string theory, but there were some finer details he could not wrap his head around. Great, Dr. E thought to himself, this guy can help me along my odyssey into physics. So halfway through lunch, Dr. E asked Dr. Witten, what are string theory's postulates, principles, and equations? Witten thought about it, smiled, and said that, well, it depended on who you asked, and, well, it was a young theory yet. So Dr. E followed up with, when do you think string theory might get postulates, principles, and equations? Ed stopped smiling. And so, instead of studying string theory, Dr. E pursued LTD theory on that road less taken, healing the blind along the way with his award-winning dissertation titled Multiple Unit Artificial Retina Chipset to Aid the Visually Impaired and Enhance CMOS Phototransistors. In the latter part of the dissertation, Dr. E placed the first iteration of LTD theory, born of his days studying with the great Nobel laureates P.J.E. Peebles and Joseph Taylor and J.A. Wheeler. Like Einstein and Feynman, they were all rugged, kind, intense men who valued hands-on physics and physical reality over mere math and mysticism, over spurious speculation and outlandish hype. Unlike string theory, inflation, multiverse mania, and LQG, LTD theory is a physical theory in the spirit of Copernicus, Galileo, Newton, Faraday, Maxwell, and Einstein. At Princeton, Dr. E learned to think of the geometry of space-time as a physical entity which could bend, curve, and move. He learned to think of the photon as a real, physical entity described as probabilistic, spherically symmetric wavefront, expanding at the velocity c. Dr. E learned to think of entanglement as a real physical effect, connecting distant entities in an instantaneous relationship, and he learned to think of the second law of thermodynamics not as a mere mathematical formula, but as a foundational physical law governing the universe. And by thinking of these diverse phenomena in terms of physical pictures, Dr. E conceived of LTD theory, the simple physical model common to them all. How do light, time, the quantum, and relativity all emerge from LTD theory? Enjoy this epic odyssey as you realize the deeper foundational unifying physical model. And two, the book is graced with Dr. E's fine art landscape photography, offering a parallel physical celebration of light and time. And that's where the description ends. And I'll just share with you one more little thing. The principle of light-time dimension theory is thusly: the fourth dimension is expanding at the rate of c relative to the three spatial dimensions. That's the foundational principle, and from that you get times, errors, and asymmetries across all realms. You get quantum non-locality, entanglement, and probabilities. You get all of relativity, as Hermann Wheeler had noted, that beginning with a space-time metric that Minkowski gave us, including x4 is equal to ICT, all of relativity can be derived. So I hope you enjoy the book. This is Dr. Elliot McGucken with 45 Surf University.